Greetings, my friends. This is the brain of TV's Pinky in the Brain, and you are listening to This Week in Geek with Mike the Birdman Dodd and the rest of the Twig crew. Twigs. Come to think of it, Pinky, I've not used twigs in any of my latest plans for world domination. If this works, then Mike and the crew will rule by my side. Yes!
Did you grow up with the NES, PlayStation, Star Wars, cartoons, and 80s TV? Do you like to think who would win in a fight between Batman and the Master Chief? Comics, games, movies, music, and TV. They're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of geeks. Games, movies, music, and TV. They're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of This Week in Geek. This Week in Geek.
Hello, hello. It's that time again. This is a shorter episode. We have a few reviews that were timely that we wanted to get out that we just couldn't quite get out in the main show this last 2 weeks. So there's going to be 2 from Birdman, 2 from myself, sort of running the gamut of different things that are available. There is going to be a Double Dragon and the Kunio-kun collection that Birdman has reviewed. The Kunio-kun games, you better known as the River City Ransom, Crash on the Street Gang Challenge, something or other. Anyway, Renegade. There's a whole series of games that were in that style, as well as the Double Dragon games that are released in a bundle for the Nintendo Switch, and Birdman has a crack at that. That'll be in this show. Birdman also reviews a Harry Potter planners. They're basically day planners in the different Harry Potter styles. I believe we have either by the time that we record this or when it comes out, we, I believe, have an interview scheduled with the owner and creator of them, which is pretty cool. We've also got, from me, War of the Worlds from Paramount. It's the Tom Cruise movie in 4K Ultra HD release that just came out. As well as Police Squad, which is the Leslie Nielsen short-lived, very short-lived 80s movie or TV show that was the precursor to the Naked Gun movies. It's had surprisingly a Blu-ray release. So those are the 4 reviews that are going to be in the show. I'll come back at the end and sort of explain what's coming up next, as we've had a bunch more things in the pipe. So without further ado, let's get to the first review.
Basically using geeks.
Leave me alone, geek boy.
Holy shit, you geeks are badass.
Alex here, just with a quick review of the new release from Paramount, which is the War of the Worlds, the Tom Cruise movie in Ultra HD 4K, or also known as 4K UHD. I had seen this movie in theaters initially, and it was one of the better remakes, especially to come out of that era, where like The Day the Earth Stood Still and some others had not held up to the expectations people had made for them. War of the Worlds itself was, overall in my mind, a better movie than the original. And obviously better than like any other TV adaptation that you had come out since then, and you had bargain bin kind of movies. This was a big blockbuster picture that overall held up really well. So I had seen this on Blu-ray as well years ago. So I'm sort of just comparing the Blu-ray to the 4K release. The 4K release does have a pretty significant upgrade in visual fidelity. I watched it on a television that had HDR and one that didn't, both 4K obviously. And with HDR off, it's slightly better quality, I would say, than what was available on Blu-ray. You'd have to have a discerning eye for that. There was a significant difference when it came to the HDR tone mapping. So it much more resembles how I remember seeing it in theaters. So overall, It's a pretty good release. They've also included a second disc that has the Blu-ray that was previously released and has all the features that came on that. So it was pretty extensive. Pretty much anything that Tom Cruise does for Paramount has a decent amount of special features that come with it. It also came with an iTunes digital code. The digital code is for 1080p only because there's very few out there right now that do 4K on that platform. But overall, it's serviceable. It's a pretty good set overall. If you're a fan of Tom Cruise or you're a fan, of sci-fi movies in general, it is one of the better ones, and it actually does make an impressive leap onto 4K.
Hey guys, we are looking at the Double Dragon Kunio-kun Retro Brawler Bundle coming to us from Arc System Works. So this collection of games that I got on the Nintendo Switch primarily caught my attention because I'm a huge fan of the Double Dragon franchise. I had all the original games on the original Nintendo. I think I only ever beat the first Double Dragon and maybe got halfway through the second one, and Double Dragon 3 kicked my ass consistently. I think I got maybe to Egypt once in like 30 years or something, but either way, the game kicked my ass significantly. So when I saw this retro bundle collection pop up on the eStore a while back, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to see if I can get a copy of this. So I was surprised that they included Kunio-kun games. You may be wondering, well, what the hell is that? Well, if you're from North America, you're actually already familiar with these titles. Talking about River City Ransom, a NES pretty much must-have, Crash and the Boys Street Challenge, Super Dodgeball, and, those type of games. Like, you'll know the look of the game by the art style. But you're also not just getting those, you're also getting 18 games in total. You're getting 11 of them that have never been released in North America and with brand new localization. So it's not just simply changing some names and getting some dialogue right. No, everything has been brought over and it looks proper. And it turns out some of the other games, like River City Ransom, for example, there's the Japanese version and then there's the Western version. Some stuff was cut entirely, which I think is kind of neat. Plus, there's just a lot of things to unlock in this game, too. Like, you can unlock different names for yourself. I think I'm Captain Atomic Emperor Birdman, so you can unlock different kind of nameplates for yourself. You can unlock different avatars. I chose a Bobo, because why the hell not? But yeah, I mean, some of the games you can get here, and I'm just going to read them out very, very, very quickly here, is you get Double Dragon 1, Double Dragon 2, Double Dragon 3, Renegade, Super Dodgeball, River City Ransom, Crash and the Boys Street Challenge. The classic titles that have never been released is... I'm going to slaughter some of these names here, but Neketsu Renegade, Kunio-kun, Neketsu High School Dodgeball Club, Downtown Neketsu Story, Neketsu High School Dodgeball Club Soccer Story, Downtown Neketsu Mart's Super Awesome Field Day, Downtown Super Kunio-kun Historical Period Drama, which is a sequel to River City Ransom. So that's really awesome. Go-Go Neketsu Hockey Club Slip and Slide Madness, Surprise Neketsu New Records, The Distant Gold Medal, Neketsu Fighting Legend, Kunio-kun's Neketsu Soccer League, and Neketsu Street Basketball All-Out Dunk Heroes. So there's like a lot to unpack here. You can also play this with up to 4 people, and I gotta say, it's nice to have all these games in one location. Plus, to put a lot of effort in the games that are like 30 years old, that shows some real dedication from Arc System Works. And while I'm thinking this is going to be a fan for those who just know the NES ports, since retro is so hot right now, I think if you're willing to game, you're going to find yourself with something kind of special, simply because a lot of these games, like I said, have never come out in North America. So, like, you are getting something special. You are getting that hockey game, rather. You're also getting the sequel to River City Ransom. So if you want to find out what happens to those guys, it's like a play or something. So I like this. However, though, it is not for everybody. Going back and replaying this, I realize how bad some of the controls are for Double Dragon. I was playing this with a Switch Pro controller, and either I suck or something happened, because I got my ass handed to me. But that's not to say this isn't the game that you remember. If you were good at Double Dragon 2 The Revenge, you're probably still good today. Although I did notice, as a plus, I was able to more consistently pull off that really cool spinning kick that Jimmy and Billy Lee are known for. They're like Dragon Spin Attack or whatever it's called. So that was nice to see some consistency there. Plus, there are enhanced versions of these games, which means you can adjust like aspect ratio, scan lines, stuff like that to have a more authentic experience. There's also a ton of sound options. There's like borders you can adjust to, just things to make the experience a little bit more authentic. So I'm gonna say, if you're a fan of the Kunio-kun games that were released in the West and a big fan of the Double Dragon franchise, then yeah, you're probably gonna want to pick this up just to get all these in a bundle in one place. If you're a retro fan, then I absolutely think this is worth picking up. I mean, it's a lot cheaper than importing these games, plus I hope you read Japanese, but to have all these games localized for the first time in the West, that's some real dedication, something I can definitely appreciate. So if you want to check out the Double Dragon Kunio-kun Retro Brawler Bundle, I recommend it. And that's the recommendation from here at This Week in Geek.
Those magnificent bastards! Color me kooky, but something very odd is going on around here.
You're not allowed to talk anymore.
We're actually going to be taking a look at something a little bit different right now. We're going to be taking a look at some products from ConquestJournal.com. And what these are some journals, planners, and some binders that we had a chance to pick up recently. And these are involving the Harry Potter license. As you guys know, I've recently become a huge fan of the Harry Potter license since 2020 began. And I wanted to check out something that would kind of fit my stationary needs, as I really don't have a planner. Yeah, I've got a phone, but sometimes it's nicer just to write things down. And especially this being the year of I don't know what's going to happen next, sometimes it's nice to have a written record of what has happened so far, as journaling and diary keeping and just kind of writing things down as they happen is becoming more and more of a lost art. So what I was able to receive is I received the Harry Potter 2020 Charms Weekly Planner. I also got the weekly planners for Gryffindor and Ravenclaw, which I am a proud member of the subreddit over there. I also received the Harry Potter Celestial Updated Weekly Planner, which isn't dated. And I also received the Harry Potter Icons 3-ring binder. So the main reason I'm talking about these is these are fantastic pieces of art, which the artist who worked on these from Conquest Journals, an artist named Tracy, did a fantastic job. They've got a real sense of the Harry Potter branding, and this is something a little bit above and beyond what you'd normally see a licensed product to be, where it seems like most product is designed by committee with assets that are like, hey, here's a screenshot from the Deathly Hallows or the Goblet of Fire, or here's, something very generic, very lifeless. And the Harry Potter stuff definitely has a personality and flair of their own, so much so that this company attracted the attention of Warner Brothers and was able to be sold at the official studio tour, and also was sold at the Wizarding World of Harry Potter in California and in Florida. And that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to get a hold of it, simply because, well, it's going to be a little while till I have a chance to travel to these places, so this is a chance to bring a little bit of the Wizarding World home to me. So looking over these things, I think they are absolutely fantastic. I mean, when you look at the inner workings of, let's say, the Celestial Planner, there are lots of cool pictures of the different Patronuses. The Charms one has like this really cute chibi art style to it, which is really kind of cute and nice. I actually gave this planner specifically to my niece Natalie, as I know she's a huge Harry Potter fan. The one that really caught my attention, though, is because of the striking blue, and that was the Ravenclaw one, and it very much fits with the aesthetic of the House of Wit, Learning, and Wisdom. And each month will have a different piece of artwork. Each piece, or each planner, for example, comes with about 100 or so stickers, I think, or at least there's a couple sheets of stickers in the back to help you mark important dates, or they're just little things you can stick on the individual days should something come up, and you can mark the event with these stickers as well to help you keep track of things. Now, obviously, this would have been a lot more useful during school, but there's no reason why you can't use these for your everyday kind of journaling needs and planning needs. And actually, as of this recording, there's actually a pretty significant sale going on right now, where if you want to pick up a bunch of their things are something like, I don't even know how to do the math on it. There's like a buttload of sales going on right now. So if you want to pick things up, like for example, the Harry Potter 2020 Charms Planner usually retails for $37. Yeah, here it's about $10. And this company does do some fantastic work. Now, due to COVID-19, they are only shipping once a week. But I have spoken with the shop's owner, and I can attest to the quality of these products. Like, if it's willing to pass muster at some of the biggest theme parks and one of the biggest licenses to come out in recent memory, then I think this is something you could probably be willing to take a chance on. If you've always wanted to bring home something that signifies your house, whether you're a Hufflepuff, a Slytherin, a Gryffindor, or a Ravenclaw, then I don't think you're really going to go wrong here. If I did have to single out one product that I think stands head and shoulders above the rest, I might recommend the Harry Potter Celestial Updated Weekly Planner, simply because that planner is not dated, which means you can use it any year that you want. And that is something my wife Blair will likely be using for us to keep track of our important dates. We're actually kind of saving this planner for a rainy day, so to speak. And the binder, I'm probably going to begin the work on my own Harry Potter role-playing game, as I've talked about it in some online forums, Neon Wands. So look out for more information about that, and I'm sure one of the podcasts that we'll do. So anyway, if you want to find out more information about these, you can go to conquestjournal.com, and please check out all their Harry Potter merchandise, as I do think it is absolutely worth it.
Paramount Home Entertainment sent over something that I was kind of surprised to see, which is a Blu-ray release of Police Squad. Now, many people out there might not even know what Police Squad is, or they've only heard of it in passing, or you might recognize it from being part of the title of Leslie Nielsen's Naked Gun movie, the first one. It said, "From the Files of the Police Squad." So, as a kid, I always didn't really understand what that meant. And then, growing up in the age of the internet now, we're able to actually see that, it was a failed TV show. So after doing a bit of research, after his appearance on Airplane, they tried to launch a television show in that same style called Police Squad, starring Leslie Nielsen and as Frank Drebin, who most of us know from the wildly popular trilogy of movies that came out in the late 80s and early 90s. Well, it didn't do very well initially. They aired 4 episodes before canceling it out of a total of 6 that had been produced at that point in time. It then, was sort of lost into the ether, but then they ended up releasing it, and I think it's 2 or 3 VHS tapes between all the episodes, and it became a staple of the rental scene in the late 80s, enough that they were able to go, hey, we can actually make a movie out of this. And then the rest is history. It didn't work initially. When I watched a bunch of behind the scenes to figure out why, it didn't work because at the time it was one of the first, if not the first, major broadcast television shows that was a sitcom comedy that didn't use a laugh track. It basically forced you to pay attention at a time when the audience really wasn't used to that. They were, for lack of a better term, drones waiting for the laugh track so they knew when it was time to laugh. This was a thinking man's and thinking woman's sitcom. There's little sight gags played very deadpan. It's if you've seen any of Leslie Nielsen's movies from the 90s, you know what to expect. So for me, it's fresh because I had never had a chance to see it before. I know it had a DVD release in the past, and a lot of shows like this that get a few episodes here and there that were sort of lost to time, they've had DVD releases over in the past, but very few get the treatment of being put on Blu-ray. You might see a few cheap companies putting Blu-rays out, but they're just up-reses or up-converts. This looks like it was scanned from the original masters and restored and put on a single disc. So you get all 6 episodes. You get a Leslie Nielsen interview, behind-the-scenes featurettes, gag reels, casting tests, photo galleries, lists of all the celebrity death shots, because before an episode would start, they'd have a famous person who was famous for TV or movies at the time introduced in the credits, but as guest starring in the episode, but they would be killed either off screen or on screen while the credits were rolling, so they never actually had to be in anything more than like 3 seconds of footage. It's actually pretty funny and interesting. I feel like a show like this would do really well today, and there's like entire genres that have sort of spawned from this. It's not rated in the States. It's rated PG in Canada because of some of the little more racy comedy that can be involved in some of these things, or the double entendres and so on. It is a quick watch because it's about 2.5 hours of programming, and you get every episode. So it's like having a double-length movie of the Naked Gun films. So I feel like if you are a fan of the Naked Gun films, you have them on Blu-ray, and you want to get something that is going to match it, and it'll fit on your shelf, it's actually a good release. I'm really surprised. They also went back and took a show that was I think it was originally in mono. They had the master tapes, and they were able to put it in 5.1 surround, and it's not just spreading all the audio to 5.1. All the voices come out of the center speaker, and all the music is spread to the left and right, and whenever there's a shootout, then you'll hear things like the back left channel, back right channel moving, and the subwoofer's pretty subdued. Visually, they have cleaned it up, and you can see a lot of things you wouldn't have normally seen. Like, you can read parts of the newspapers and whatnot. So it's done a pretty good job of modernizing itself and releasing now. I feel like it might go under the radar of some people, but if you like that Leslie Nielsen style of comedy, this is really good. It's not like, in quotes, TV quality. This is movie quality stuff. And it's way ahead of its time. So it's actually a fairly reasonably priced. Prices are going to be different depending on your region and country, but it is a single disc release. You can get all 6 episodes. I can see myself watching it over and over again with friends because there's some really ridiculous stuff in here.
This is a fair request, and I promise I will not judge any person only as a teenager, and that this is no more right than saying all teenagers are drunken dope addicts or glue sniffers.
We are looking at Streets of Rage 4, coming to us from Dotemu, Guard Crush Games, and Lizard Cube. This is one of these brawlers that I've been looking forward to for quite some time. I've always been kind of a fan of the Streets of Rage series since the Genesis days, although not having a whole hell of a lot of experience with it, as I was always more of a TMNT Final Fight kind of guy, as I didn't really have those Genesis games growing up. I only had a very select few games. So when I saw the trailer for Streets of Rage 4, I'm like, alright, that actually looks pretty kick-ass. And thanks to wonderful media connections, I was given a review code for this game. So I reviewed primarily on the PlayStation 4 for the purposes of this review. However, you can get this on the Switch, PC, and Xbox One via Game Pass as well. And what you get is a beat-em-up that covers about 12 stages, and the game takes place about 10 years after the events of Streets of Rage 3, where Mr. X has been defeated, and you run into the Y brother and sister, basically the offspring of Mr. X, and he and she want to take over the city basically by using sound to control minds, and you run into other characters from the other Streets of Rage games. And what you get is a pretty cool brawler with a pretty B-movie plot, all things considered, but you're here for the action, the fun, and the retro challenge presented therein. And it's fun, like literally. I was playing this, and it's fantastic. Like, really, it was a genuine joy to play through. And I played through it as Blaze primarily, because I just think she's one of the coolest looking characters. Although Axel is there too. There's Cherry, who has like a guitar strapped to her back. I think she's the daughter of like Adam Hunter. And there's a guy with cybernetic arms named Floyd. But you can also unlock additional characters as well, including classic Streets of Rage characters. If you get a high enough lifetime score, you can do some pretty neat unlocks later on. And they control exactly like the retro characters. which means you don't get necessarily some of the newer additions, like some of the super moves here in this game, but they will have their original moves they had in their original base game. So that's some wonderful throwback nostalgia right there. So there is the story mode, which is 12 stages. Each should take you between 10 and 15 minutes to beat. Some of them are longer or shorter than others, but primarily about 10 to 15 minutes seems to be about the sweet spot. The highlight stages for me was Chinatown, and probably the museum and the tower were some of my faves, simply because the music in this game is absolutely gorgeous, like really, really well done. Chinatown in particularly really stood out to me as a track I'll probably go back to and add if the soundtrack is available on Spotify or something like that. Another thing that I liked too was the art style. This game has a very comic book, anime type like feel to it, and it totally feels in line with the modern Brawler aesthetic. And I can't think of anything else besides maybe Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, which came out like a million years ago at this point, that really made me feel like a proper retro throwback. I mean, if more games in this Brawler genre can have the attention to detail and the love of their source material, then I really think the whole genre can have a whole resurgence. I mean, I'm really glad that I played Streets of Rage 4, and I honestly can't think of a better use of the Xbox One Game Pass. But the game is worth the price of admission too. I mean, I do kind of wish I actually had this on my Switch, as I've always considered the Switch to be the more retro-y-ish feel kind of a system. But it was kind of nice being able to have this on the PlayStation 4 as well. Now, there is online multiplayer for this. However, during my review period, nobody was online playing, although I did play this pretty late at night. And I was actually kind of surprised nobody was sitting there playing, and I let it sit looking for a player for like 5 minutes. So, I don't know. There is a versus mode where you can just beat the crap out of each other. Didn't get a chance to play that because not like anybody in my household really plays games. So, there's that, unfortunately. And there is a 4-player local multi-co-op, but with COVID, you're not getting 4 people in the same room right now. And then finally, there is the arcade mode, where basically you would plunk in a token and go through the game in one shot. Good luck, because this game is tough at times. It does feel almost unfair at times, but there are modifiers you can do with each level. It just reduces the amount of points you get to unlock stuff, but you can get extra lives, extra stars to do your like special moves. So, but anyway, my point is, this game is worth it. It's fantastically fun, and you should be checking out Streets of Rage 4, available for PC, Switch, Xbox, and PlayStation 4.
Do you have any hobbies?
I collect spores, molds, and fungus.
Hold that thought. It's crapper time.
And that's going to do it for the show this week. We have more coming up next week, as we've got a bunch of stuff on the go that probably isn't going to make it to the main show initially. But coming right up, we have, let's see what's on the schedule now so everybody can find out. Logging into the website, and I've got Strong Bad on my mind for whatever, and check the email. What do we have here? So, coming up, I believe we have the Twig main show is going to come out on Monday as usual, and that's going to have an interview with the creator of the Harry Potter Day Planners. On Tuesday, we are going to have the interview that we conducted with Thomas Herrenstrom on the Alien RPG tabletop game. We've got for Thursday this coming week, we interviewed Chris Birch of the Fallout RPG tabletop game fame. And then we also have the following week, ready to go on the following Tuesday, Mark Langworthy. We interviewed him about the Judge Dredd tabletop RPG, and that's probably going to round out unless we get a few more responses, our May interview series that we were doing, especially on the RPG tabletop end. We sort of tried to cover the gamut of different types of games and systems and interesting people. We may still have some more things on the go. I believe we're scheduling an interview for the next week or so. I think I can say it now, with the CEO of The Asylum, the company that makes the Sharknado movies, as well as all those other sci-fi movies that you see, the movies of the week that are just ridiculous. So that should be interesting. And there's a few other things in the pike down the road. We are recording and releasing about a week and a half's time or so, the Twig Sunday Funnies. This is going to be an episode on crossovers. Then we've also going to be doing a special recording on, we're not sure where we're going to slate it. It's either going to be a Twig special, or it's going to be Birdman Book Club, something like that. We're going to talk about our history with sci-fi series, and it's going to be sort of a roundtable discussion. We are also going to be recording a prototype, and it's going to be released in about a week's time or so, on our histories with game collecting. And that one's going to have Billy from Nerd to the Third Power joining us as well, which is the show that Birdman is also a part of. So we're all going to have pretty vastly different backgrounds on game collecting and where we see it going in the future, which is pretty neat. We are also tomorrow going to have a syndicated episode up of Nerd to the Third Power, which is on movie theaters and what's going on with them right now. We are also going to be on Future Imperfect, and I believe we're doing a Altered Geek very soon as well. So there's things in the works. I believe we are launching the Twig After Dark and our B-movie show, which is the Loose Cannon. That might launch as a soft launch with our interview with the Asylum guy. It might end up being our main show is planned to be on the American Ninja series to start. And so there's things sort of materializing now in the next couple of weeks, because it's been go. We've done about 15 interviews in the last just under a month, which is a fair amount considering we hadn't done 15 interviews in the last 5-6 years total, and we did it in a month. So during a pandemic, which is interesting. So that's sort of, keeping you up to date on what's going on. As far as reviews of what Birdman has to come out, I'm not entirely sure what he's working on just yet. I am personally working on this week's show. Will have my review of Sakura Wars in it. I'm diligently working to try to get that done. I'm also just starting the Little Town Hero Big Idea edition or digital copy that I've got from Game Freak. That'll be on next week's show. And I also got that weird game, Utawara. Oh boy, Utawara Runo. Oh yeah, God, I can't pronounce that. An RPG from NS America. And just before we started recording here, I was sent a copy of Doom 64 for Stadia to check out. I'm assuming it's something that's going to play very well, simply because the graphics and bitmapping and everything. You're not going to notice the compression as long as there's not a lot of latency. I can't see it having any problems. So there's that. And then I also have 2 more Ultra HD movies that I've got from Paramount to check out, Days of Thunder and Top Gun. Surprisingly, I have never seen either of them all the way through. I have seen bits and pieces of Top Gun. I've seen less of Days of Thunder. I've seen a little bit on television here and there. You catch like 10 minutes, 15 minutes here. I've seen funny clips here and there, but that's it. I've never actually seen the whole movies, and I'm going to get to watch them in 4K Ultra HD with HDR on. So that should be interesting. So they'll probably be reviewed as a pair together, because they're sort of always thought of as a pair together when it comes to Tom Cruise movies. And that'll probably be on next week's show. And there might be some more stuff coming soon, but that's sort of where we're at least on my end. So it's going to be a long weekend. I'm not sure. Friday's not the day off, I don't think. Monday's the day off, right? Because it's Victoria Day. Yeah, so happy long Victoria Day weekend if you're in Canada where you don't get fireworks this year or barbecues, but it's a day off from the work you're probably not working. Well, anyway, if you're in the States, I'm not sure if it's a holiday, but if it is, great, awesome, happy holiday to you. If you're in Canada, just, have a beer or two, relax, and just stay inside. And if you're somewhere else in the world, you do you. So that's it. I'll talk to everybody on, I guess, in a couple days on the main show.
Well, that's our show. All right, here's the deal. Every time you watch my show, I will send you $40.
Checks will not be honored.
You've been listening to This Week in Geek, your source for guaranteed nonsense or your money back. Tune in next week for more info on the most important things you didn't need to know. Check out our website at ThisWeekInGeek.net and subscribe to our podcast through iTunes or any podcatcher. If you'd like to comment on this episode, head over to this episode's post at ThisWeekInGeek.net and leave a comment through Facebook Connect. Follow us on Twitter at ThisWeekInGeek.net and follow our Instagram at twig_official_podcast. Social media not your thing? Send us an email at feedback@ThisWeekInGeek.net. We'll see you next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
Just when you think this show is terrible, something wonderful happens.
What?
It ends.
I have to go. Somewhere there is a crime happening.
Japanese girls puke in each other's mouths.
Hello Kitty, 可愛いでしょ? 超可愛いよね。私も大好き。
Now let's see some bestiality.